Today I'm going to review with you the multiple readings method for analyzing poetry. A painting will be displayed for approximately 5 seconds. Study the painting. When it disappears, jot down what you remember about the painting. Don't cheat by pausing the video. The painting will be displayed again. Now what do you see? Are you starting to pick up on the details? Now look at the painting one more time. Each time you looked at the painting, you probably noticed something different. Sometimes it takes your brain multiple exposures to discover all that's there. This is true for poetry too. The more times you read a poem, the more your brain begins to notice the details, and the more it will start to make sense. I recommend reading a poem at least 3 times to fully understand it, and I literally mean read, not just glance back at the poem. Let's practice using the multiple readings method with Sarah McLachlan's song, Angel. Open up your copy of this song now. Using the multiple readings method, you read through a poem at least 3 times, each time looking for different information. The purpose of the first reading is to get the gist and make sure you understand what happened in the poem. In the second reading, you focus on the writing, looking for clues to the meaning by focusing on the details. By the time you get to the third reading, you should be ready to determine the tone and theme. Before you begin the first reading, make sure you read the title. Poems are so short that poets use every available tool to give you clues about the meaning, including the title. Pause the video so you can complete this step. Now read through the poem 1 time slowly, pausing to highlight words and phrases that you find confusing. Then go back and clarify your confusion. By the time you finish the first read, you should have a basic understanding of what happened in the poem. Don't worry about deeper meanings yet. You'll get to that later. For now, focus on getting the gist. Pause the video so you can complete this step. In the first reading, you should also take a second to think about the speaker. Don't assume that the speaker is the author. Poets often pretend to be someone else in their poetry, and that is the case in this poem. Instead, ask yourself what type of person the speaker is. Pause the video so you can complete this step. Here are some things that I noticed in my first read. Pause the video so you can read through my notes. The focus of the second reading is the author's writing. Read the poem again, focusing on the details. Does the poem rhyme? Is it rhythmic? How does that impact the poem? What do you notice about the way the poem is structured? What stands out to you about the language? Pause the video so you can complete this step. Remember that in poetry, change, repetition, and things that are weird are always important. It's as if the poet is saying, hey, notice this. I already pointed out the change in the speaker between the first 2 stanzas and the last. What else do you notice that changes, repeats, or is weird? Pause the video so you can complete this step. Here are some things that I noticed on my second read. As I read the poem a second time, some of the word choice and imagery really stood out to me. In the first stanza, for example, the speaker talks about wanting a distraction that will lead to a release. But the next line is, memories seep from my veins, and that makes them feel empty. That's a weird line. And in the last stanza, the poet uses the line, from this dark, cold hotel room, which is oddly specific. What do you think the poet could be talking about with these lines? Maybe drug use? Pause the video now so you can read through the rest of my notes. By the last reading, you should be ready to think about tone and theme, but first read the poem all the way through one last time. Literally, read it. Do not skip this step. Every time you read a poem, it will become clearer and clearer. Then start thinking about the meaning by looking back at the title, determine how the author is trying to make you feel, and then deciding on an overall theme. Pause the video so you can complete this step. Here are my thoughts after my third reading. In poetry, the last stanza or last few lines are often your biggest clue to the theme. It's like the conclusion paragraph of an essay. The writer is wrapping up their thoughts, so make sure you think about those lines when determining the theme. Pause the video now so you can read through the rest of my notes. Let's check your understanding of this poem. Is this a theme of Angel? No. Although the author is not supporting the use of drugs, the purpose of this poem is not to share the message, don't do drugs. Is this a theme of Angel? No. At the end of this poem, someone dies, so this is not a theme that you can find in this poem. Is this a theme of Angel? No. This is a tone, not a theme. What about this? No, this is a topic that the author is exploring, but you should express themes as a statement. What is the author saying about depression? That's a theme. Is this a theme of Angel? Yes. This ties closely to the last lines of the poem. In the arms of the angel may you find some comfort here. Remember, though, that poems can have more than one theme. This may not be the same theme that you came up with. Just make sure that your theme is expressed as a statement and can be justified using evidence from the poem. Did you figure out what this song is really about? Here are some thoughts from Sarah McLachlan about her inspiration for the poem. I wrote Angel after being on the road for almost 2 years straight and was both mentally and physically drained. I went to a cottage north of Montreal to relax and write. I read on arrival in Rolling Stone about the Smashing Pumpkins keyboard player who had overdosed in a hotel room. The story shook me because though I have never done hard drugs like that, I felt a flood of empathy for him, and that feeling of being lost, lonely, and desperately searching for some kind of release. I wrote that song in 2 days. But Sarah McLachlan also says this. I think once an artist puts a song out there, it becomes open to interpretation, and I purposefully leave a certain amount of ambiguity in songs so that people can relate the songs to themselves and to their stories. And for me, it's a great validation as an artist to know that something I've created has gone out there in the world and helped people to heal or to feel something in a profound way like that. Poets purposely leave their writing open to interpretation. That's one reason it can be so difficult, but it also means that you don't have to hit the bullseye, figuring out exactly what was in the poet's head when they wrote the poem. As long as you are somewhere on the target and can support your interpretation with evidence from the poem, you're doing a good job.